Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. For the first vid of the day, we are going back once again to the JRC case, and we're taking another look at the FDA Executive Summary for April 24th, 2014. Yesterday, we left off at 4.4, so we're going to start from there. Now, before we get going, just a couple of things. First of all, everything we're going over today is going to be included in a link in the description box, as well as the petition to shut down the Judge Rotenberg Center. If you haven't already signed it, please do. It's extremely important because I feel like we are not going to stop these practices until we actually get these folks closed down. All right, another thing real quick. If you have young children, the things that we discussed during this episode and during this whole series with the JRC is not for young kids. I recommend to please put in your headphones. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to start today with treatment of self-injurious behavior. We're going to be using the acronym SIB and aggressive behavior. 4.41 Pharmacological. All right. And again, I apologize in advance for all the scientific terms that I butcher today. So, going forward here, there remains debate in the scientific literature with respect to both effectiveness of pharmacological treatment of SIB and aggressive behavior and when medication management should be considered. Although several drugs have been used to treat SIB and aggressive behavior, there are only 2 pharmacological treatments approved by the FDA for autism spectrum disorders. Risperidone, which if you recognize that is from when we were going over the 2012 case against the JRC. Andre McCollins was on risperidone, was the first drug approved in 2006 to treat behaviors associated with autism in children. These behaviors were included under the general heading of irritability and include aggression, deliberate self-injury, and temper tantrums. In 2009, Atypical was approved for the treatment of irritability and aggression in children ages 6 to 17 years of age with autism. The approval was based on data from 2 8-week randomized placebo-controlled multicenter studies that evaluated the efficacy of oral aripiprazole for improving mean scores on caregiver-rated irritability subscale of Aberrant Behavior Checklist ABC-1. Of course, you're not going to ask us. Shocker! I just love that assumption of incompetence in the afternoon, don't you? Now, guys, I get it. The reason why they go to the caregivers is the group of people that we are talking about are people that they feel like cannot communicate. They actually can, but they're the FDA, and they are sure as hell not going to be the ones to actually learn our language. So, going past that, measures irritability symptoms associated with autistic disorder, such as aggression toward others, deliberate self-injuriousness, temper tantrums, and quickly changing moods. They're not temper tantrums. Oh my God, can you possibly be more ableist? They're meltdowns. Do not assume meltdowns and temper tantrums are the same thing, folks. They're not. Any neurotypical child not getting their way will throw a temper tantrum. Meltdowns are out of our control. Just to clear it up. God, this was 2014. Dear Jesus, help me. Again, I'll say it. We need more autistics in the research field. I'm gonna start a hashtag. Anyways, moving on. Overall, the use of pharmacological treatment for SIB and aggressive behavior is reported to be generally effective although specific rates of reduction in SIB and aggressive behavior following a pharmacological intervention are quite variable, largely due to the methodological limitations of reported studies. Nonetheless, there is reasonable consensus in the literature that the use of the psychotropic drugs may help treat or at least maintain decreased rates of SIB in autism in conjunction with behavioral interventions, especially for those individuals for whom the function of SIB is determined to be automatic or sensory in nature. Research on psychotropic drugs has shown that pharmacological treatments are more effective if they are based on a putative biological mechanism underlying the SIB. Mahatmaya et al. 2008. For example, SIB may be the result of a dysfunctional serotonergic pathways, notably a malfunction in the serotonin reuptake. Carmignati et al. 2006. Thus, the use of selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, may exert their efficacy by increasing serotonin reuptake. A recent Cochrane review, Rana et al. 2013, examined the effectiveness of pharmaceutical interventions in the management of self-injurious behavior in adults with intellectual disability. The Cochrane review included only randomized placebo-controlled trials, which were completed in predominantly adult populations with intellectual disabilities. From this review, several different classes of pharmacological medications have been reported to be effective in reducing, ameliorating SIB aggressive behaviors, such as described below. So, long story short, we're going over the drugs that are used and have been found to have a pretty decent success rate in treating self-injurious behavior, as opposed to, shocking the crap out of people at 10 times a rate more powerful than a police taser. They do use some ableist language, but we've seen that already throughout the entirety of this document. So, moving on. 4.4.11 Antipsychotic Agents. The Cochrane Report 2013 did not include any antipsychotic trials, as these studies failed to meet their inclusion criteria, e.g. randomized, placebo-controlled trial. Nonetheless, there are numerous reports of various antipsychotic agents for the treatment of SIB and aggressive behavior. The use of antipsychotics has shifted from typical to atypical antipsychotics, primarily because of concerns about severe side effects in children. That is what the JRC uses, by the way, as one of their main recruitment tools. Evidence shows that atypical antipsychotics may be useful in treating certain symptoms associated with autism spectrum disorders, such as aggression, irritability, and self-injurious behavior. Now, the aggression and irritability that they go ahead and just throw in there, again, this is ableist language, folks. It projects this idea of us as constantly aggressive, constantly irritable, constantly self-injurious all the time. That's not the case. There's always a trigger, just like there's a trigger when a neurotypical gets angry and goes off. Just wanted to throw that in there. McDougall et al. 2008. The larger number of studies of atypical antipsychotic agents has been reported for risperidone. Sharma and Shah, 2012, conducted a meta-analysis of effectiveness of reducing maladaptive behaviors in autism. The database for the analysis comprised 22 studies, including 16 open-label and 6 placebo-controlled studies. Based on the quality, sample size, and design of the studies prior to 2000, the database was restricted to articles published after the year 2000. This study aimed to examine the efficacy of risperidone treatment in ASDs. Based on the results of the meta-analysis, the overall combined effect size and sampled weight effect size fell within the large effect size range based on Cohen's classification, Cohen 1992. The results of the meta-analysis suggest that risperidone may significantly improve many of behavioral symptoms associated with ASD, including SIB and aggressive behavior. Overall, these results suggest that despite the various outcome measures utilized in these studies, there appears to be improvement in problematic behaviors with risperidone treatment. Additional placebo-controlled studies also support the short-term efficacy of low-dose risperidone in adolescents with a sub-average intellectual function and various disruptive behaviors, including aggression. Bangsheim and Gorman, 2012. Finally, other less rigorous trials of risperidone have consistently shown improvements in aggression, irritability, self-injurious behavior, temper tantrums, and mood swings in patients with autism spectrum disorders. Shia et al. 2006, Chavez et al. 2006. Both risperidone and alazapine. I did say I'd butcher a few words. Olanzapine have been reported to reduce aggression in persons with intellectual disability. Amor et al. 2001. Data for atypical antipsychotic agents are limited, but zaraproxidone and aripiprazole appear to show promising treatment options for SIB and aggressive behavior. McDougall et al. 2002. Aripiprazole is the second FDA-approved option for the treatment of irritability and aggression in children ages 6 to 17. Promising smaller trials of children with irritability and autism suggested this drug may have relatively good efficacy. Stigler et al. 2004-2009. Valicenti, McDermott, and Dim, 2006. In a study of 5 children given an average of 12 milligrams a day for 3 months, 100% of them had improvement in their aggression and self-injurious behavior and tantrums. Olanzapine and quetiapine have shown minimum clinical benefit in autism spectrum disorders and are associated with marked weight and sedation. Baptista et al. 2008. A recent study by Golubchik and colleagues, 2011, suggested that low-dose quetiapine may reduce aggression levels and increase sleep quality in adolescents with autism spectrum disorders. 2 case reports found clozapine in doses of 200 to 450 effective for reducing aggression in children and adolescents with autism. Suda et al. 1996, Chin et 2001. So apparently with some of us that are more towards the self-injurious behaviors, might give in to the aggression out of frustration more often than others, some of these antipsychotic drugs have been of huge benefit. Okay. 4.4.1.2 Antidepressant agents. There have been small studies that have showed that selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, may improve both stereotypic and obsessive-like behavior associated with self-injury and aggression. In 2 Japanese studies, fluvoxamine helped reduce aggression in addiction. Oh my god, I can't talk today. In addition to stereotyping in children with autism, Fukuda et al. 2001, Yokoyama et al. 2002. Currently, fluoxetine, escitalopram, clomipramine, and sertraline are approved for major depressive disorder and obsessive-compulsive disorder in children down to 6 years of age. These SSRIs have found to decrease aggression in individuals with autism. Moreover, the drugs have shown dose-dependent effects on SIB, with higher doses typically more effective in reducing aggressive behavior. Carmianti et al. 2006. Other antidepressant agents such as clomipramine, oh my god, and the cyperamine have found to be superior to placebo for treatment of several symptoms, including SIB in children and young adults with autism. Gordon et al. 1993. I swear to God, they tried to come up with the most difficult names on the freaking planet for medication. God, I'm smart and all, but geez. That was my mild complaint, by the way. Now I've totally turned this awkward. Let me go back to what I was doing. Evidence of efficacy of older tricyclic antidepressants with exception of desipramine, buspirone, and venlafaxine have not been reported beyond the single case reports involving one or two subjects. Opioid antagonists. A recent Cochrane report, Rana et al. 2013, identified 4 double-blind, placebo-controlled trials which compared the effects of naltrexone versus placebo. One of the naltrexone versus placebo trials reported that naltrexone had clinically significant effects, 33% reduction on daily rates of 3 to 4 participants' most severe form of SIB, and modest to substantial reductions in SIB for all participants. However, this study did not report on reductions in SIB for However, this study did not report on all 4 participants with 25 milligrams and 50 milligram doses, producing a statistically significant decrease in SIB. Let me read that over. I'm sorry. And I do not have an edit button, so I'm just going to embarrass myself all over the place today. Okay, let's go back. So, one of the naltrexone versus placebo trials reported that naltrexone had clinically significant effects, 33% reduction on daily rates of up to 3 to 4 participants' most severe form of SIB, and modest to substantial reductions in SIB for all participants. However, this study did not report on statistical significance. Another trial reported that naltrexone attenuated SIB all 4 participants with 25 milligrams and 50 milligram doses, producing a statistically significant decrease in SIB. Another trial, N equals 8, reported that naltrexone administration was associated with significantly fewer days of high-frequency self-injury and significantly more days with low-frequency self-injury. Naltrexone had different effects depending on the form and the location of self-injury. Another trial with 26 participants found that neither single-dose 100 milligram nor long-term 50 and 150 milligram naltrexone treatment had any therapeutic effect on SIB. Other research on opioid antagonists has suggested that the treatment targets peripheral behavioral symptoms and not the core symptoms of autism. Naltrexone helps decrease withdrawal in SIB and somewhat increases verbal behavior. Ekjar et al. 2006, Williamson Swinkles et al. 1996. It also has dose-dependent effects, with optimal benefits observed as doses between 0.5 and 2.0 milligrams. Campbell et al. 1993, Uckall 2006, Taylor et al. 1991. Additionally, naltrexone may be more beneficial for certain individuals with SIB and autism. The research suggests that individuals with severe and non-socially reinforced SIB are better responders to the drug. Those with lower beta endorphin levels also tend to respond better. Uckall et al. 2006, Taylor et al. 1991. Simmons, Thompson, and Rodriguez 2004 also found that males respond better than females, with females often requiring extremely high doses. However, despite these positive findings, there are some paradoxical findings in the naltrexone research. The use of naltrexone may in fact worsen SIB and aggressive behavior in the long term, increasing relapse rates if discontinued, and in some cases, naltrexone treatment was not found to be different than the placebo. Benjamin et al. 1995, Campbell et al. 1993, Williamson Swinkles et al. 1995. In general, naltrexone is only found to be effective for severe SIB in short-term instances with individual variation in responding. Mood stabilizers, anticonvulsant agents. Mood stabilizers, namely lithium, and anticonvulsive agents have been used to treat aggression in a variety of psychiatric disorders, including autism. Most studies have been limited to case reports in a single patient case report. Lithium was used to augment fluvoxamine in the treatment of aggression. The dose was 900 milligrams, and lithium augmentation did lead to a significant reduction in aggression. Epperson et al. 1994. One open-label trial of divalproex sodium to treat irritability and aggression in autism used an average dose of 768 milligrams a day in 14 people ages 5 through 40. Hollander et al. 2001. Target symptoms encompass impulsivity, aggression, and mood instability. The outcome was measured using Clinical Global Impression Improvement Scale, CGI-I. The 71% of subjects were very much improved. Side effects were present, including alopecia, behavioral activation, elevated liver enzymes, sedation, and weight gain. A larger prospective trial in 30 autistic youths ages 6 through 20 examined the difference in aggression after treatment with the divalproex sodium or placebo. Hellings et al. 2005. Despite adequate blood levels, the two groups did not differ in reduction of irritability based on the ABCI subscale. Other anticonvulsant agents such as lamotrigine, topiramate. I'm just going to butcher these, screw it. Levetiracetam have yielded equivocal results in reducing either SIB or aggression in persons with developmental disabilities. Rob 2010. Alright, so I actually went through a lot more than I was anticipating because going through drug as treatment in regards to these behaviors is probably going to be in and of itself a massive section. So I'm going to go ahead and close it off here in regards to this. Now, before we head out today, since I didn't really do it yesterday, we are going to take a look at another video. Because once again, I know hearing me read through that is like the equivalent of you having me read the dictionary, or even worse, the DSM-5 to you, and might as well be watching paint dry. So, let's avoid that. Alright, so what you're going to see in this clip is Andre McCullen's mother and Greg Miller. He is a person who used to be one of the orderlies at the school and now works definitely against him and has definitely been one of our major sources of information as to what actually goes on in that school as opposed to what they tell you. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on here for you real quick.
Petitions in hand, demonstrators fight to end electric shock treatment after an 18-year-old is left brain damaged. Plus, author Eric Larson on being in the Garden of Beasts, his bestseller about an American family in Berlin during the rise of Nazi Germany. And Cambridge police turning themselves over to teens. Now on Greater Boston. Good evening, I'm Jared Bowen in for Emily Rooney. A Canton school is facing national criticism over its controversial use of electric shock therapy. In a recent malpractice trial, video of school officials repeatedly shocking an autistic teen was shown in court. The graphic video went viral and prompted more than 200,000 people to sign a petition demanding that the Rotenberg Center end the practice. The online push to stop electroshock therapy at the Judge Rotenberg Center was launched by Gregory Miller, a former teacher's assistant at the school. After video of autistic teen Andre McCollin's shock treatment was shown in court and posted online last month, more than 200,000 people signed Miller's petition at the organizing site change.org. Today, Miller and Andre McCollin's mother, Cheryl, brought those names to the State House.
220,000 people, concerned citizens. 220,000 is the size of this box. We're taught to believe that this is the only school that can help these children in the whole world. And then we realize afterward, let's think, what was I thinking? Because around the world they have programs where they use positive programs, positive support for these children.
So you remember in all these parent interviews how they said that this was the only answer for our child. Video after video after video of those parents that we've seen so far that are fighting so hard for the center, right? Well, they were trying to get Greg there to drink the same Kool-Aid. So, I just wanted to bring that up. That's why I always say they're very good at what they do, unfortunately.
On their list of politicians to visit, House Speaker Bob DeLeo, whose chamber has repeatedly stopped attempts to make shock therapy illegal. And with me now are Cheryl McCollins, who is the mother of Andre McCollins, who was treated with electric shock therapy, and Gregory Miller, a former teacher at the Judge Rotenberg Center. Welcome to both of you. So we can't, for a variety of rights issues, we can't show the video that was shown in court. We weren't there shooting it that day. People can see it on YouTube. But Cheryl, can you describe for me what that video depicts with your son?
It depicts torture, abuse, which is exactly what it is. And this is what they do. And they wanted to hide this from the public. But now I'm here to show the public exactly what they do. They abuse disabled children, and they make a big profit off of doing it.
Well, what the video shows, as a bystander just looking at it, not really understanding it, but reading what the Rotenberg Center says is they do 1 to 3 second electric shocks against the skin. But you see your son being held down, or I think he's tethered because you can't actually touch the person with the treatment, and he's being shocked. I mean, when you saw this video, what was your reaction? Did you have an understanding that this was happening?
Oh, no, not at all. I was very well misinformed. First of all, it all started because my son refused to take off his coat. When he refused to take off his coat, they shocked him. He ran underneath the table trying to get away from them. They pulled him out from underneath the table, dragged him, and held him down with a lot of people standing around him, and they all had their hands on him. He never hit anyone, never raised his hands, nothing. He was afraid, very scared. And then they placed him on this 4-point board with a helmet, and they shocked him 31 times in a 7-hour period. He didn't go to the bathroom. He hadn't eaten. Held down 7 hours, which was a contraindication. They were not allowed to do those 3 things at the same time. I also withdrew them using this device on his arms, but they had it on him anyway.
Well, what the video does not show, but what the school says, is that there was a pattern of really aggressive behavior. Well, not necessarily not taking off your coat can't necessarily be presumed as aggressive behavior, but there had been a pattern of aggressive behavior with your son prior to that treatment that's shown in that video.
Well, what people don't understand, first of all, there's a lot of provoking and controlling that goes on in this school. They took my son off of his medication. If you take any child off their medication, they are going to exhibit behaviors. So that's one way of provoking. There's no therapy in the school, so they don't speak to the children. So if my son is having any type of problem, for instance, they asked him to take off his coat, but they didn't ask him why. Why won't you take off your coat? So there's no communication, okay? That's also very unfair, and it's also something that they never informed me that they do here.
Gregory, let me bring you in here. You are a former employee of the school. They are very upfront about this is a method that they use, that this is not commonly practiced, that they take it very seriously. but they use the term aversive therapy. What is the philosophy behind this treatment?
Well, in first place, you can see a lot of details on the change.org, and where I've listed the things that I wish that I knew when I first started there to help make a decision. And I'd like to just comment in terms of it not being common. These students are shocked there every day. So to say it's not common, that's not true. In fact, there are some students that have written in their programs while I was there that they would tie them to the same kind of boards, stretch out like Jesus, and have them with these electric shocks, and they'd shock them 5 times, spread out over a 2-hour period, as a consequence for a single behavior.
So what is the philosophy behind it, though? I mean, this is something it's not new, it's not singular to the Rotenberg Institute. This has been done for decades. So what is the philosophy behind it?
Well, the philosophy's been there for decades, but I think this is the only school that has used pain like this to this degree. My understanding is that, hey, that we can control you. That we can, if we want to make change, we'll change you through your environment, basically. That your environment makes you who you are. So in your environment, if you have a positive reward for something that we want you to do, then you adapt. And if you get a negative consequence, a strong shock for something we don't want you to do, well, then you avoid that thing. And I believe it's this mentality about how do we control somebody else by shaping their environment. That's my best understanding.
Okay, we did reach out to the Rotenberg Center today, and they provided a statement which I want to read to the both of you, which is that most students at the JRC do not receive aversive therapy. It is only administered when other therapy options have been exhausted, and parents and doctors petition the court. Each case is reviewed by a human rights committee, a peer review committee, and a physician. And they also pointed out to us, Cheryl, that every parent has to sign off on their child being treated with electric shock therapy. So did you sign off on your son being treated?
Yes, but you see, first of all, they don't inform you of everything that they do when you sign up and when you sign off this petition. And the people who, like they say, it's court ordered, they don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
They don't have an idea of what goes on in the school.
Meaning the shock treatment is not
meaning that they abuse the children, meaning that they torture the children. The tape of my son shows you exactly what they're doing. That device is supposed to be used for extreme behaviors. The only reason why I allowed my son to go to the school is they had cameras in every room, on the bus, even in the housing.
And let me just stop here for a second. Another thing, I'm sorry that we don't have them on here and that I have to play devil's advocate to a degree, but they also said that your son had exhibited violent behavior, that he had punched you and had punched his grandmother in the face.
In 1994, that probably did happen. But we're talking about, what year was it that he was in the school? 2001?
Yeah, 10 years
Prior
ago.
to this school, he was in another school, and he was on Risperdal, and he did very well. And due to some issues, I had to remove him. The only reason why I chose this school is because they had cameras. That was the main reason. My son didn't have erratic behaviors. He didn't bang his head on walls, kick, bite, scratch. But I will tell you this, if he's provoked, which a lot of times he was, okay, he will become aggressive, and they do a lot of provoking there.
And Gregory, I have to say, what they also pointed out to us about you was that you had been suspended from the school at one point, that they're considering filing a lawsuit against you for defamation, and at one time you had actually advocated that there wasn't enough treatment of electric shock therapy to treat some of the students there.
At the beginning, when I first started there, I did believe in the program. I believed in what the psychologists had designed as treatments, and I, like many parents are there. I believe the parents, I believe the psychologists, I believe the lawmakers thinking that this was the only treatment that was going to in the whole world that was going to help these most severe behaviors of these students. That somehow these students were different from the rest of the students in the world. In terms of Judge Rotenberg Center, they can say anything they want. And say anything as long as they know they're not on the witness chair. If they're on the witness stand, maybe they would say something else. I left myself on my own choice. I made that decision, and I was in good standing. In my exit interview, I was told that, hey, you're one of our top 10 employees. We'll miss you. That's what I was told.
But you had been suspended at one point.
Oh, everybody's suspended at Judge Rotenberg Center for a day or here, a day there, just like they have consequences for students. They have consequences for all the staff. Everybody there, basically, if you work there any part of the time, you miss a day here, you miss a day there. It's just supposed to be the equivalent of an electric shock for the staff. You do something, and that's just part of the life there.
Cheryl, I want to ask you, this all came out as part of a malpractice trial. I know you can't really, I guess the term, it was settled ultimately, so you can't really disclose the terms of the settlement, but are you happy with how it was resolved?
To a degree, but I will never be happy because right now there are children in this school and they're being tortured and abused as we speak. Now, if this tape is what we have seen, I can only imagine what I haven't seen.
Let me just ask you, because we're running out of time, but quickly, what's the next step? You've met with people on Beacon Hill today. There are some politicians who have forthrightly said that they don't want to sign off on this, they don't want to ban it. So what hope do you have of instituting some change here?
Well, number one is people need to become aware. They need to see what we're talking about. They need to see it. I mean, for the JRC has discredited and tried to deny what's been happening there for so long. And for once, thanks to Cheryl and the efforts of Cheryl's and her family, we finally can see a little bit of what it looks like inside the school.
All right, well, thank you both for joining. It's a tough issue. We appreciate your coming into the studio today.
Thank you.
And in a moment, best-selling author Eric Larson is here talking about the...
That pretty much covers it. We don't need to go into the rest of their news report. So, guys, that's all I got for you this afternoon. Now, as just like in the JD versus AH case, these Judge Rotenberg people, they lie. They try to misrepresent facts. They want to paint Greg Miller essentially as just a disgruntled employee who was let go and is coming back for revenge. And especially since he's been a major source of information for what actually goes on inside the school besides the witnesses themselves and the videotapes, they want to do everything they can to tear him down, and I'm talking to this very day. So, just wanted to let you know all about that. Now, in the meantime, folks, we're going to wrap this video up for today. I do appreciate you all coming by, especially this close to Memorial Day. So, we don't get that many views on this channel, especially not for these videos. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this afternoon, and as always, folks, we here at Smelling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.